Welcome back. Today I would like to address a question/comment that I get a lot from people, and it's when people say to me things like, I don't read books like you do, Sarai, smart people books, or when people ask me questions like, I'm just not really sure where to start because like the classics are hard, they're all so long and they have like old language and they're kind of boring, like I don't really like them, but I just feel kind of silly when I tell people the kind of books I read. And first things first, you should never feel ashamed about the books you're reading, and you should never let anyone make you feel that way, because if you like Nicholas Sparks or Twilight or Dostoevsky, it doesn't matter. You're reading, and that's awesome. So you should just be really happy that you're reading, and it's great. So don't ever let anybody make you feel bad about that, because that's stupid and they're obviously a snob or an elitist. For those people who are wanting to kind of break into the classics, I have some kind of tips, I guess, for getting started with those. So we will check those out next. Okay, so my first tip, or tip number one, is that you should start with children's classics because everyone's read them. They're really accessible, they're really fun to read, and they're really easy to read. I personally would recommend Alice in Wonderland. I actually have a couple different copies of this one. This one came in the Owl Crate and it's really cute. This is just a Barnes & Noble Classics edition. They're super cheap. You can pick them up at Barnes & Noble for like $5 to $7 or something like that. So that's a great place to start if you want to read a classic but you don't want to buy like some big expensive book. This one comes with the sequel, which I didn't really like that much. I think the original is better. And then this is a really beautiful annotated edition. This is a bonus tip, not one of my numbered tips, but a bonus is to get annotated versions of classics that you're going to read, because you're going to learn things about the classics that other people might not know. So like as you can read through, you might find like interesting like historical context to it. You might find some interesting author information that other people might not know, and that's kind of fun to bring up in conversation. I would also recommend the Anne of Green Gables series, also a classic, really, really fun. I don't think there's a person who's read Anne of Green Gables who doesn't love Anne Shirley, because she's like the cutest protagonist in the entire world, and she's sassy and she's crazy and wonderful. Netflix just came out with a new series, Anne with an E. So it's kind of a good time to start reading this series, because then you can go and watch the series, and that's kind of a fun connection to make as well. Tip number two would be to read more modern classics. So when I mean modern classics, I just mean something that was written like maybe after like 1950, because the language is going to be a little bit easier to read. It's not going to be one of those books where you get into it and you think, this is just way too hard, this language is old, it's too intellectual sounding, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not really gonna have to look up any words in these books, which is kind of nice. My first recommendation would be Fahrenheit 451. I got this book from my mom, and it's just a great read, and it's still relevant today because it has to do with technology. Most people think it's about censorship, but that's not technically the case. The author did say it was about technology, and so I think it fits perfectly into our modern sensibilities about technology and how they've kind of taken over our lives. So that's a great one to read. It's really short, super simple, really fast to read. So that's a great one to start with as well. Animal Farm, for those of you who are politically minded, this is a great one. Most people probably read this in high school, but if you didn't, it's a great place to start with classics. It's really easy. It's super, super, super short and really easy to read, and it's about talking animals. It's not cute though. So if that's, if you're like a Disney person and you want cute talking animals, this is not the book for you, because they are kind of psychotic and really scary actually. So, but it's a really good book if you are kind of wanting to talk to people about political situations. This is a great book to start with because it will give you a lot of insight into that type of thing. And then another one that I personally really love is Jonathan Livingston's Seagull. It's super short. I mean, it's like minimal words to picture ratio, so it's a really great one for those of us who are intimidated by lots and lots of words in books, because that can be a little scary if you're used to reading like modern books. But this is a great story. You wouldn't necessarily think it's that interesting because it's literally just about a seagull named Jonathan Livingston Seagull, but it's a beautiful story. It's very inspirational. It was written in the 70s, I think, and it's just a great, great story. So another great place to start. Tip number three would be to start with shorter books. So this doesn't look like a short book. I know. But this is a compilation of the Sherlock Holmes stories, which in this volume, this is volume 1, but in this one, it actually, I think each one is like 100 pages maybe. So you could just like knock out 100 pages of this and you'll know one of the Sherlock Holmes stories, which are classics. And also like Sherlock Holmes is the best. So if you've watched like Sherlock, or if you've watched like the movies with Robert Downey Jr., you're gonna like this book. It's really funny and crazy, and Sherlock Holmes is just such a character, really fun to read about. So yeah, that's a great place to start if you're looking for something that's shorter, pretty easy to get through in like a day or two. And then also Of Mice and Men, which just, you know, don't read it if you are somebody who can't handle crying at books. If you like happy books, don't read this book. But it's really, really a beautiful story. And John Steinbeck is just a treat to read. He has this way with setting that just is beautiful and lush and just lovely. So super short. You could probably just read this one in a day. It's a heavy story though. It's really emotionally gripping. Anyway, so this is a great one if you're looking for something that you can just read really fast and that feels like an accessible, easy read. Oh, I forgot one in the short category. I forgot to say, if you want to read Tolstoy, but you don't want to read Anna Karenina because that book is like 1,000 pages long, but everyone should read Tolstoy, you should read The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which is, it's just a short story. It's like 40 pages or something, and it's just so good because Tolstoy just has this way with human emotion that I don't think anybody else has ever captured the way that he has. So that's a short story you should definitely read. And tip number 4 is to find a book that's not necessarily short or modern, but that is genuinely interesting. I would start with, if you're wanting to read like Jane Austen, for example, I love Pride and Prejudice, it's my favorite book, but if you want something that kind of fits more into modern society a little bit better, Emma is a great place to start. Because this book is about Emma Woodhouse, who is one of the funniest, most delusional people in the world, and she's so entertaining and charming and funny. Jane Austen actually said about her that in Emma Woodhouse, she wrote a character that only she as the author could love, which isn't true because Emma is now beloved by many people. But it's hilarious, there's like matchmaking snafus, and it's just a charming, sweet read. And it's a really good introduction to Austen because it's probably her most lighthearted read. All right, so another book that's entertaining is, or anything really by Alexander Dumas. Okay, so great books. If you've seen the movies that these are that are based off of them, you're gonna love the books. But it's okay to read the abridged version because these are super long books a lot of the time, and it's not always worth it to read the unabridged version of a book. And people are going to be so snobby about it. One of the questions I always get is when I say I've read Les Mis, for example, people are always like, have you read the abridged or the unabridged version? As though it really matters, even though it really doesn't. It's not that big of a difference. Like, what you're missing is like boring descriptions about streets, like literally cobblestone streets and stuff like that. Like, it's not a big deal. So don't feel bad if you read like a Victor Hugo book or an Alexander Dumas book and it is abridged, because you're still getting the story and it's great. And don't let people make you feel bad if you read the abridged version, because it's fine. For my third recommendation in that, I would say Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which is just so sweet and so good. And I think it's a kind of a staple really for like young women or old women even to read. It's just very inspiring, and all the lessons you can learn about sisterhood in this book are great. It's actually kind of funny. Ross and I are watching Friends right now, and we just got to the episode where Joey reads Little Women because Rachel told him to, and it's really funny, and he gets really emotionally invested in the characters because you can't help it. They're so distinct and interesting, and it's a great read. So that's a fun one if you're looking for something that's not modern but is still really entertaining. So there are many other classics that you can read. You can pick up anything. I mean, if you want to pick up Anna Karenina, even though it's 1,000 pages long and you've never read something like that before, good for you. It's a great story. You're gonna like it. Okay, but if you don't want to start with something like that, if that's intimidating, start somewhere small and work your way up, because reading the classics is worth it. You're gonna get a lot out of them. There's a reason they're classics. I mean, and not all of them are actually that entertaining. Like, Beowulf is not really a good book, but because it's like the first written book, I mean, people make a big deal out of it. You have to study it if you're an English major. It's so boring though. It's really not that good. Wishbone made it look a lot more interesting than it really is, okay? So it's okay if you try and read Beowulf and you hate it. You don't have to love all the classics. You don't have to love any of the classics to be a reader. But if you want to start somewhere, I hope that you find my tips useful. One more thing before I go, I just did a really fun craft day where I made this book purse. So this was a book that I got at a library sale. I think it was like $1. It was just an old library book. And I'm not one of those people that feels like really bad about destroying books because I bought this just because it was pretty. I wasn't going to read the book, so it's, you know, it's whatever. Not a big deal to me. But it was a really fun project, and this is the inside. I like put some cute little like fabric on the inside. It was really fun to make. So if you ever want like a tutorial on how to make this, I could make a video for that too, and that would be really fun because it was a super cool project, and I'm excited, even though all it fits inside is my phone, credit card, keys, and chapstick, and that's only if I like maneuver it perfectly because it's really not very big. Anyway, so I hope that you pick up a good book this week, whether it's a classic or just something else that you love reading. That's great too. And I hope you enjoyed my tips today. Please like and subscribe and comment telling me what your favorite classic novel is, or if there's one you've been really wanting to pick up but you're a little intimidated by, and we can talk about that. Have a great day. Bye. We should probably take our Easter decorations down. Sorry. Okay. I got distracted.